Hey everyone, it's your girl Liza, back at it again with another video. And let me tell you, today we're diving deep, like deep sea diving for sunken treasure deep, into the world of history. But not the boring kind you sleep through in class. We're talking about the juicy stuff, the stuff they don't put in textbooks. Historical myths. Did you know that Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't actually short? I know, plot twist. He stood around 5'7", which was average for his time. But the myth started because of confusion between French and British measurements. It just goes to show, sometimes history is just a big old game of telephone, and somewhere along the line, the message gets real distorted. Today we're going to talk about debunking some of the biggest myths in history. You know, those stories that we've heard over and over again, but are they really true? We're going to dive into the fascinating world of historical myths and uncover the truth behind some of the most enduring legends of all time. It's important to understand the truth behind these misconceptions, because they can often distort our understanding of the past and shape our perceptions of the world around us. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're about to separate historical fact from historical fiction. Alright, history buffs, let's kick things off with a bang. Or should I say a clash of swords and sandals. We're talking about the legendary Battle of Thermopylae, where a small band of Spartan warriors supposedly held off the entire Persian army. Talk about an underdog story, right? Well, hold your horses, because the reality is a little more complicated. The story goes that 300 Spartans, led by the fearless King Leonidas, faced off against millions of Persians led by Xerxes. And while those Spartans were undoubtedly fierce warriors, they weren't exactly alone. Turns out they had a little help from some friends, namely a contingent of Thespians and Thebans. Now, I know what you're thinking. Liza, are you trying to tell me that Hollywood lied to me? And to that I say, well, it wouldn't be the first time. The truth is, the Battle of Thermopylae was a complex and brutal conflict that involved multiple city-states and armies. It wasn't just a simple case of 300 Spartans single-handedly holding off a massive Persian invasion. Don't get me wrong, the Spartans fought bravely, but their sacrifice was part of a larger Greek strategy to delay the Persian advance. They knew they couldn't win a straight-up fight, so they used the narrow pass at Thermopylae to their advantage, holding off the Persians for as long as possible and inflicting heavy casualties. This gave the other Greek city-states time to regroup and ultimately defeat the Persians in the Battle of Salamis. So, while the 300 Spartans might not have been the lone heroes Hollywood made them out to be, their courage and sacrifice played a crucial role in the Greek victory. But here's the thing. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that inspire us, even if they're not entirely accurate. And the story of the 300 Spartans has been inspiring people for centuries. It's a story about courage, determination, and fighting for what you believe in, even against overwhelming odds. And those are values that are just as relevant today as they were over 2,000 years ago. So the next time you hear someone talking about the 300 Spartans, remember that the truth is often more complicated than the legend. Okay, so this next myth always makes me giggle a little. It's the one about how people in the Middle Ages believed the Earth was flat. I mean, come on, people. Did they think ships sailing over the horizon just suddenly plummeted off the edge? Did they picture a giant waterfall at the end of the world? The truth is, the idea of a flat Earth was actually pretty rare in the Middle Ages. Most educated Europeans during this time period were well aware of the Earth's spherical shape. I mean, they weren't living in the Stone Age. They had access to ancient Greek and Roman texts, which clearly stated that the Earth was a sphere. Think about it. Aristotle, Ptolemy, these guys weren't messing around. They had already figured out that the Earth was round, and they even calculated its circumference with surprising accuracy. And their work was preserved and studied throughout the Middle Ages, especially by scholars in the Islamic world who made significant contributions to astronomy and mathematics. So, where did this whole flat Earth myth come from? Well, it seems to have originated in the 19th century, when some writers started promoting this idea to discredit the Middle Ages as a time of ignorance and superstition. It was basically a way to make themselves look smarter by making their predecessors look like, well, not so smart. But the truth is, the Middle Ages were a time of great intellectual and cultural flourishing. They saw the rise of universities, the development of new technologies, and the rediscovery of classical knowledge. To say that everyone in the Middle Ages believed the Earth was flat is like saying everyone today believes in unicorns. Sure, there might be a few people out there who do, but they're definitely in the minority. So, let's give the Middle Ages a break, okay? They had enough to deal with without us saddling them with this flat Earth nonsense. Alright, let's talk about one of America's most beloved founding fathers, George Washington. And no, I'm not talking about the guy on the dollar bill. I'm talking about the guy who supposedly couldn't tell a lie. You know the story, young George chops down his dad's cherry tree, and when confronted, he utters those famous words, "I cannot tell a lie." It's a heartwarming tale of honesty and integrity, but here's the thing, it's probably not true. In fact, there's no historical evidence to support it whatsoever. The story first appeared in a biography of Washington written by Mason Locke Weems, which was published in the early 19th century, several years after Washington's death. Now, Weems was known for, shall we say, embellishing his stories. He was more interested in creating a heroic image of Washington than in sticking to the facts. And the cherry tree story, well, it's just too good to be true. It's like something out of a children's book, designed to teach kids a valuable lesson about honesty. But the thing is, even if it didn't happen, it still says a lot about how Americans view George Washington. We want to believe that he was a man of impeccable character, someone who always did the right thing, even when no one was looking. And in a way, that's kind of its own myth, isn't it? Because no one is perfect, not even George Washington. He was a complex and flawed individual, just like the rest of us. But that doesn't mean we can't still admire him for his accomplishments or learn from his mistakes. Okay, everyone knows Christopher Columbus, right? The guy who discovered America? Yeah, about that. Turns out he was about 500 years late to the party. Meet Leif Erikson, the real OG explorer. This Viking badass sailed from Greenland to North America around the year 1000, long before Columbus set sail. Talk about a history rewrite. Now, you might have heard that Erikson's encounter with the native people was, shall we say, a little less than friendly. But recent archaeological discoveries suggest that Erikson and his crew may have actually established a peaceful settlement in present-day Canada, a place they called Vinland. They probably traded with the indigenous people, learned from their culture, and maybe even shared some Viking stories around a campfire. Who knows, maybe they even had a Viking Native American fusion cuisine night. Okay, maybe I'm getting carried away, but you get the point. The story of Leif Erikson reminds us that history is full of surprises, and sometimes the truth is even more fascinating than the myths we tell ourselves. So next time you hear someone talking about Columbus as the first European to reach America, be sure to drop some Viking knowledge on them. Okay folks, let's talk about one of the most epic stories of all time, the Trojan War. And no, I'm not talking about the Brad Pitt movie, although that was pretty epic too. I'm talking about the ancient Greek legend of the Trojan horse, a tale of cunning strategy, betrayal, and a really, really big wooden horse. You know the story. The Greeks, after besieging the city of Troy for 10 long years, come up with a brilliant plan. They build a giant wooden horse, hide a bunch of soldiers inside, and pretend to sail away in defeat. The Trojans, thinking they've won, wheel the horse inside their city walls as a victory trophy. Big mistake. That night, the Greek soldiers sneak out of the horse, open the city gates, and let their comrades in. Troy is sacked, the Trojans are defeated, and the Greeks sail home victorious. It's a story that's been told and retold for centuries, inspiring countless books, plays, and movies. But here's the thing, did it actually happen? Well, that's where things get a little murky. While there's archaeological evidence to suggest that the city of Troy did exist and was destroyed by fire sometime around the 12th century BC, there's no concrete proof that the Trojan horse ever existed. Some scholars believe that the horse was a literal object, while others think it might have been a metaphorical representation of a siege engine or a natural phenomenon like an earthquake. And then there's the fact that the story of the Trojan horse is primarily known from Homer's epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, which were written centuries after the events they describe. Now, Homer was a great storyteller, but he wasn't exactly a historian. His poems are full of gods, monsters, and larger-than-life heroes, so it's hard to know how much of the Trojan War, including the story of the horse, is based on actual historical events and how much is pure poetic license. So was the Trojan horse real? The truth is, we may never know for sure. But whether it's a literal historical event or a product of myth and imagination, the story of the Trojan horse continues to capture our imaginations and remind us that sometimes the most effective weapon is not brute force, but cunning and deception. Okay, last but not least, let's journey to ancient Rome and uncover the truth about Pompeii, the city frozen in time by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. You've probably seen the pictures haunting plaster casts of Pompeii's citizens caught in their final moments, their expressions forever etched in a mixture of terror and resignation. It's a chilling reminder of the destructive power of nature and the fragility of human life. But here's the thing. Pompeii's story doesn't end with the eruption of Vesuvius. While it's true that the city was buried under a thick layer of volcanic ash and pumice, it wasn't lost forever. In fact, archaeological excavations have shown that Pompeii was rediscovered and partially reoccupied multiple times throughout history. People knew it was there, they just couldn't access most of it. It wasn't until the 18th century that serious archaeological work began at Pompeii, and it's been ongoing ever since. So what does this tell us about Pompeii? Well, for one thing, it shows that even the most devastating disasters don't always erase the past completely. Traces of the past can linger on, buried beneath layers of time and debris, waiting to be rediscovered and reinterpreted. And in the case of Pompeii, those traces provide us with an unparalleled glimpse into the lives of the people who lived there. We can walk the streets, explore their homes, and marvel at their art and architecture, getting a sense of what everyday life was like in a bustling Roman city nearly 2,000 years ago. So there you have it, folks. We've journeyed through time, debunked some of history's biggest myths, and uncovered the truth behind these enduring legends. And let me tell you, sometimes the truth is even wilder than fiction. In conclusion, understanding true history is essential for building a more informed and nuanced understanding of the world around us. By debunking these myths and legends, we can gain a more accurate appreciation of the past and its complexities. So the next time you hear a story that sounds too good to be true, take a closer look and see if it really stands up to scrutiny. If you want to learn more about debunking historical myths, be sure to check out our related videos where we delve deeper into the world of myth busting and explore even more fascinating stories from history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our future adventures in Historyland. Until next time, stay curious, my friends.